Hey guys, so the video is going to be a little bit different today. This one's going to be more almost a recipe video, and it's going to mainly focus on these trial packets here. Now I'm sure being in the dog world, most of us have probably accumulated a lot of these. Sometimes we use them, but more often than not they end up sitting around collecting dust, being forgotten. So I'm going to show you guys a cool way to use these trial packets in a way that's really fun for your dog. So step number one is choose your ingredients. So with these trial packets, and maybe even some treats too, if you've got some laying around, you can add those in too. There's a couple things to consider. One, if your dog has a sensitive stomach, you might want to stay with similar proteins that he's not allergic to. For example, this one has turkey and duck and whitefish, so maybe you want to mix this with some other turkey blends versus mixing it with a lamb blend here. And vice versa, maybe mix this with a lamb instead of with a turkey if that is what your dog is sensitive to, or if your dog is not necessarily allergic, it's always best for them to keep one simple protein. Also, if you're using any kind of dehydrated raws, make sure that they are dehydrated raws that are okay for use with dry food. So many times there are some raws out there that will digest very differently and at different rates than kibble will. So the thing is that it will really upset a dog's stomach if their food's digesting at different rates. Just make sure that it is okay to add with dry food. The next step is to blend them up. Add them all into a blender, or I have a Magic Bullet, which is really great because it's good for small quantities. What you want to do is start blending once you've got everything in there. You can even have some fun by adding some cinnamon or parsley flakes to the dry as well. And parsley flakes are good for their breath, as well as a little pinch, not too much, but a little pinch of cinnamon. Dogs love, it smells great, and can actually be really great for them too. Now there's 3 ways to store this powder. You can either store it inside a Ziploc, inside a regular treat container, or my personal favorite, inside a shaker. This can be a spice shaker, this can be any kind of shaker that is easy to shake. This one here is a shaker from a popcorn flavoring. When you're using those though, there are a lot of chemicals, so make sure you wash it. I've washed this about 5 times. Make sure you wash it a lot to make sure you got every little bit out. Now there's a few different things you can do with this powder once you have it. So you can use this to make dog treats in replacement of the wheat flour. You could sprinkle this on top of your dog's favorite treats, or you can do my personal favorite, which is put it inside a shaker and sprinkle it on top of your dog's food. It'll just give them a nice little different flavor, and I think they'll be very happy with the different interest, but it's not so much that's going to irritate their stomach, especially if they do have a sensitive stomach, if you stay with similar proteins that their food has. One more thing to keep in mind, however, is how you are going to keep the moisture out of these bags. Just like your sugar, I'm sure you've noticed it clumps up a lot. Now that you've blended this together, you are releasing a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of moisture. Now, this shouldn't be a problem, but if you are noticing any kind of clumping in your dry foods, or if you're planning on storing them for a long time, you don't want them to go bad. So what you want to do is, there's 2 different things. One, you can get some of these oxygen packets. Now, I don't buy these. What I do is, sometimes when you get treats, you'll notice that they do have these little oxygen absorbers in them to keep the moisture out while they are sealed. And so what I do is I just keep them, and then when I need to, I just pop them into certain jars and things. Now, I only put these into ones that I know I can scoop around it, things like that, so I know I'm not accidentally getting it in there. Another option is bread. Right? It's actually a little known fact. I tend to take the ones off the end because no one tends to eat them anyways. So what you do is, if you take a piece of the bread, you can actually stick it into the container, and when you seal it up, you'll notice that the bread will start drying because it'll start drawing in the oxygen away. And you guys can even do that with your sugar bowls. If you're noticing it's clumping, or same thing with brown sugar, just stick a piece of bread into it, and you'll actually notice that it will start declumping and the bread will just dry out. And when it's fully dry, just take it out and replace it with a new piece of bread. Now, something to keep in mind, if your dogs do have a grain allergy, try a rye loaf or something that is not going to be sensitive towards your dog's stomach. Make sure that these do not have nuts or raisins in them. I know a lot of people have bread like that, just because those things can be hazardous to dogs, so you just want to make sure you're avoiding that. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed the video on how to use all these trial packets. And I hope you guys are able to do that and enjoy.